What's going on, guys? This is the Red Rogue and I hope you're all doing well today. For this episode, I wanted to cover a trinket that I had noticed during the PTR cycle and thought it performed really well, and apparently a lot of world first pushers did too. This may just be due to people having an easier time farming it over the raid options, but the damage output on it is very impressive. The trinket we'll be looking at today is the Ticking Sack of Terror, which comes from the new mega dungeon Tazavesh. I unfortunately have not had the good fortune of getting this trinket on live servers, but that's what the PTR is for, along with the Trinket Tour vendor. So basically, for those who haven't bothered looking into this trinket yet or even heard about it, it's a Melee DPS trinket that gives a bit of mastery as its main stat, but it has a unique effect. Whenever you hit a target with melee attacks or abilities, you'll have a chance to apply a stack of Volatile Satchel. When the target reaches 3 stacks or the debuff falls off naturally, the trinket will explode and deal a nice chunk of fire damage. This trinket, even at 226 item level, is pretty darn impressive. It drops off the Mailroom Mayhem encounter, and if you do Tazavesh on hard mode, you might be lucky enough to get it to drop at 233 item level. While that is still a bit lower than a lot of trinkets you can get from Heroic Raid, Mythic Raid, or even Mythic Plus, the damage and consistency of the Volatile Satchel charges is not to be underestimated. To be fair, we've also had many classes and specs running around with World Quest trinkets for like 9 months because of how potent they were, so I'm not surprised that a new trinket from the new dungeon is doing well. In single target encounters, it seems pretty easy to regularly hit 3 stacks of Volatile Satchel, but even if you don't and the stacks fall off naturally, it'll still proc the damage. If the target dies before the proc goes off, then obviously the target won't take any damage, and it's only a single target hit, so it doesn't do any AoE unfortunately. But there is an interesting interaction, as it means with the stacks you can do something a little memey. I don't know how effective this is for all specs of Rogue or really all classes that can use this, but Outlaw is kind of punished for swapping off of the target you have between the eyes on, and Assassination's kind of locked onto whatever target you apply the Shiv debuff to for your extra nature damage. However, just for the sake of argument and to show y'all what I mean about memey, if you swap between targets right after a satchel debuff is applied to your initial target, you can then tab to a new target and have a chance to apply a single stack to that target as well. The trinket doesn't seem to give any stacks to secondary targets if you're using AoE or cleave abilities like Blade Flurry, Fan of Knives, or Shuriken Storm, so only the target you have selected can get the debuff it looks like. What this means is if you're in a multi-target situation where all targets can and should be taking damage and it isn't just one super priority target with inconsequential enemies, so for example the first boss of Theater of Pain, you can instead swap between each target, making sure they all get a satchel debuff before switching back to whichever one you're trying to kill, and you'll be able to get a little bit more damage out of this trinket, which already does a decent amount on its own. Again, for some specs this is a bit more detrimental, like for Outlaw with the whole being stuck to whatever you have between the eyes on, and the Shiv requirements for Assassination, but for Subtlety for example, this could be something you want to look into, because other than having Find Weakness out on targets, which should be on everything you're hitting anyhow, you'll have a bit more fluidity in swapping targets without losing much or any damage due to it. Regardless of trying to meme the damage output of the trinket or not by swapping between targets, I would definitely recommend trying to get this one or to try it out if you already have it. Seeing as how like 6 or 7 people on Echo's roster for Guardian the First Ones were wearing this trinket, it definitely has some potential to be a keeper. At least for as long as Blizzard doesn't do anything to it, which is certainly possible with how much attention World First pushers have made to try and get this trinket and for as many people to have it as they do. Anyways folks, I hope you liked this little peek into a potentially potent trinket you might want to get your hands on. I'll be keeping an eye on any other interesting little bits of information that I can come across with this trinket and any others as potential tuning may come around. If you did enjoy the video, feel free to leave a like, a comment, or maybe even subscribing to the channel if you aren't yet. It's all super helpful to the channel's growth, and I truly appreciate you taking the time to do so. And as always, my appreciation and gratitude to all of my viewers and especially my patrons, who all help make these Shiba Shenanigans possible. Thank you all so much for watching. This is the Red Rogue, and I'll see you guys around.